What's up, entrepreneurs? Tessa here with Idea Pros, and today we're talking about how to dodge common startup mistakes. I'm super excited because this is content that we actually have on the website right now. We're only going to cover 3 of the points with Fred and get a little elaboration on each of these so that we can add it to the blog. And it's just picking his brain about these topics is so valuable. So Fred, the dodge common startup mistakes, there's 3 that you want to cover, and we talked about the first one being customer research. So can you kind of dive into a little bit more about how entrepreneurs fall victim to that as a mistake?
Yeah, and one of the big mistakes that entrepreneurs make repeatedly really is going into a market without really understanding it. When we say customer research, we really mean something more comprehensive than that. It's really strategic marketing, if you will. And strategic marketing means not the fluff you have to give to people to get somebody to buy your toaster oven. Strategic marketing is really understanding how you're going to succeed. And there are a couple aspects to that. Number one, you have to understand your market. You have to understand the size of the market. You need to understand how quickly that market is growing, and you need to really know who the competitors are. Before you start building your widgets or your toaster oven or whatever it is that you're building, you need to know where you're going to play. I'm on a football field. It's 100 yards by 50 yards. These are the way I do my points. Business is just the same. If you don't know the game you're playing, you don't know who your opponents are, you're not going to win. And so before you start building anything, you really need to understand that the marketplace that you're in. And now that competitors, now you got to figure out what they're doing well and what they're not doing well and what you can do better than them. So once you get that all figured out, then you really need to sit down and look at who your customers are. Why are they going to be your customers? What are you going to give them that they can't get from the existing marketplace that's out there? How are you going to not only get them, but keep them? How are you going to make them turn from customer to a loyal advocate of your brand? People who are in love with you and what you're doing, not just the product you're selling, but who you are as a company. Charities or nonprofits that you might contribute to, the main aspects to your organization. What is it that people will respond to? That type of audience that you have, what is it that they will respond to? And that's the type of thing that you really need to understand before you even know what to build or what to call your company or how to position yourself. You need to have all that data. And gathering the data, by the way, is really the easy part. You have a few $1,000s to spend, you can go out and buy research reports all day long. It's analyzing that data, knowing what to do with that data. And that's why a lot of entrepreneurs that are really already successful, Matt Fitzner was on last week. He's got a booming business already, making 10 grand a day in his business, but he came to us anyway, in spite of the fact that he also has an MBA, because it's that interpretation that's positioning yourself, the manufacturing something that is better, looking at all those 1-star reviews that your competition has and figure out what people are complaining about and make sure that they don't have that complaint with you. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Well, the next one that we're going to cover is actually kind of dovetails off of that, knowing your customers and really getting to know them. And that's that a lot of people fall into a pitfall of surveys and either not doing surveys or doing them wrong. So can you tell us a little bit more on how to avoid some of the mistakes that surveys would present?
Yeah, and so that's kind of what we do here in Idea Pros. We research the marketplace and we figure out how we want to be different, how we're going to be compelling to our customers, and then we go find a whole bunch of them and ask them, are we on the right track? That's what surveys are for. I always say there is not a such thing as a bad survey. Why? Because if you get information that you're not happy about hearing, you can address that before you have a garage full of stuff that you ordered from some manufacturer in China. You can figure out what you need to do to make those bad points become. So a survey is a way to go have that customer experience before you're actually selling anything to that customer, and not only having that experience, but being able to sit there and get the reaction from that customer, right? Even though they're not really buying something from you, that's who your customer is. And when you do a survey, you can break it down. I just want women between 25 and 34. I want old guys like me. Well, whatever it is that I'm looking for, I can find that. And as long as I'm doing over 100 people done properly, you can have a statistically valid sampling that you can take to the bank. And you'll be off a few percentage points, but more than that. So not only ask them the questions, hey, this is what we have, this is what we do, this are our great features. Ask them the things you're afraid of too. Geez, they might not be happy with the price point that I got to sell it for. Ask them, put a price range, and see if you got this great thing, but you have high manufacturing costs and you have to sell it for $49, and your consumers are telling you they wouldn't pay more than $39 for it. Well, you got to go back to the manufacturer. You got to get bigger quantities. You got to find other manufacturers, right? You cannot make something that people are not going to buy, even if they love it. I love a really nice car. I'm not going to go pay $1 million for one, though, right? And so it's the same thing with anybody else. Know that customer. Know what they're going to respond to. Ask the difficult questions. We did that in one particular case, and I talked about it before, and now they're on the verge of getting a really nice licensing deal. So we had a product, came back, awful survey, we revamped it, we did other things, listening to what consumers told us. We did another survey, boom, loved it. And if we had just built the first thing without knowing what our customers, I'd be here trying to sell you that instead of telling you how to be successful.
Well, I guess we had someone that asked a question about how to find the people to survey. So that's actually, it's a really good question. So thank you for submitting that, guys. But how do you find the people that you're going to survey?
Yeah, so there are professional groups that do this for you, quite reasonably priced, and you just go and you establish your metrics. You figure out who your target customer really is, and you do a survey around that target customer. These survey companies will go out and they'll gather people all over the country, and by the way, you can have your complete results within about 48 hours. So there's plenty of resources there on the internet for you to use. I don't want any, but the friends, if they'll take it completely in on here, or they're going to tell you whatever they want you to know about them. So you're either going to get really good results, or somebody's going to tell you can't do this no matter what. And it's just not valid. You don't want to ask mom how you're doing. You want to ask the person who's going to buy your product.
I apologize for the little delay there. The third point that we wanted to cover was about competitors, and if there's startup mistakes that people often make with their competitors. Can you cover that real quick?
Yeah, there's two big ones. I think one of the biggest ones is the fear of proceeding in light of competition. A lot of entrepreneurs will pack it up and go home when they see there's other players out there. Having that fear of competition, that's a problem. If you are creating something good, they're either going to be out there already competing, following on your heels competing. If you don't have anybody competing against you, you don't have a good product. You don't have a good app. So the biggest thing is don't go home. Somebody's already out there. Use that as an opportunity to see what they're doing, what the game is, and how to play it, which is the second part of it. When convince yourself you're not going to go home, and then really understand them, as I alluded to before with research. Nail down those people who are your most direct, understand them as well as they understand themselves. There's all the internet's an amazing thing. You can find a lot of crap on the internet if you're trying to prove a point or win an argument, but you can also find a lot of really important, valid data when you're looking to research business type things. You know, the internet's the best place for business. You can find out everything about a company, even if they're private. You may not know their revenues, but you can see the type of growth rate. You can see if somebody's selling a product and they have 2,400 comments on there, you know that they're doing pretty darn well. And so understand that party, and just like in that football game that has become what I'm using today as an example, you need to know your opponent in order to win the game.
I think a lot of people they actually are not keeping tabs on their competition too. So they're not continually checking in on what they're doing. It's possible when you first start researching that your competition is doing just, you know, basic advertising, and then all of a sudden they step up their game and they're doing advertising with video and all kinds of things. So you have to keep your eye on your competition consistently as well.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Tessa. If you're not watching your competition and you're starting to become relevant, you can be sure they're watching you. And they're looking at the things you're doing. They're looking at the mistakes that you're making. They're looking at the things that you're doing really well. And they're going to try to copy them. They're going to try to one-up you. They're going to try to look for your one-star reviews and see what it is that you're not doing well. So, you know, I was, and please don't hate me for it, but I was an attorney before, and I did a lot of trial work before I got back into becoming an entrepreneur. And I'd go to my trial, and I would have 4 or 5 big, huge boxes of all the arguments I was going to make in trial, and I'd have another 4 or 5 boxes of arguments that I thought my competitor, the attorney on the other side, would have to make. So it's the same with business, you know, figure out what the other side has, what they're likely to do, and make sure that you beat them to the punch, or that you know how to deal with it when it happens.
And Fred, do you have anything that you want to leave people with today? I know we've got a shorter one, but sometimes that's better to do quick and down and dirty information for everyone.
Yes. Let me pretend I'm Fifi.
Right? Here, tell us about what Fifi's journey has been like. We'll still get Fifi on, of course.
So Fifi's an amazing woman. She's just like Matt last week, real entrepreneur. But she's a real workaholic, and that's what you all have to be. It looks like we may have lost Tessa now.
Nope, I'm still here. I'm still here. I actually am
today. Hopefully, it's not from me sitting out on the balcony at the edge of the property.
I gotcha.
Let me see.
Am I frozen?